Last time on Shadow Piece, the momentary visit of Dracul Mihawk on Hachinosu Island came to an end. He managed to rescue Perona with next to no issues, besides his small scuffle against the Marine Admiral Fujitora. However, Perona wasn't the only thing he regained in this scenario, as by spending only a few moments in the other dimension Fujitora had locked him in, had resulted in him getting 10 years younger. He would hold the title of the world's strongest swordsman a bit longer now. With his rescue of the Shrine Maiden of Death, the biggest reason why the Fleet of Death had come to this island and fought against the Blackbeard pirates had been resolved already. From this point on, there were two objectives left to fulfill. First, for their ally Charlotte Sanji, they still needed to rescue his wife, Charlotte Pudding, who was kidnapped because of her special ability as a member of the Three-Eye tribe. And second, they need to teach the people who dare mess with one of their own a huge lesson, by sinking this entire island to the ocean's ground. But for now we will spectate another battle, a battle which holds a big role not only in this war but for the future of an entire nation. The shore stretched wide beneath a grey and brooding sky, choked with the scent of sweat, steel and the sounds of war. Cries could be heard from every centimeter of the island, the smell of blood ever present. Thousands of pirates were battling all over Hachinosu. Death was the most common thing found in this location. But between the two masses of men and monsters, the world had narrowed down to two figures standing alone in the middle of the scarred island, separated by only a few feet, yet divided by decades of hatred, betrayal and silence. Loki wore his armor like judgment, gilded, spotless, carved with the royal sigil of the Elbaf kingdom. His long crimson cloak drifted behind him, kissed by the wind. His face was sharp, youthful still, but already lined with the weight of responsibility, of expectations sharpened into blades. Across from him stood Hyodine, bare-chested beneath battered pauldrons, hair tied back in defiance, eyes like storm-lit coals. He wore no insignia, no title, only the proof of survival etched into his skin, with every scar. There was no crown on his brow, no legacy behind him, only a past no one wished to remember. They stood staring at each other, the silence between them louder than the battles behind them. The parties with them showed a lot about their respective personalities and the journeys they had to get to this point. As the captain of his own crew, Irene stood in front of Straussen, Rode, Goldberg, Gerd and their newcomer Tyr. Followers, comrades, friends, each of these terms could be used to describe them. They went through thick and thin together, experienced countless battles, and grew to trust each other more than anyone else. On the other side there was Loki, all by himself. Well, not technically all by himself, but still all by himself, as the people by his side were all him. 7 Lokis from parallel worlds were gathered behind him, and they all shared the same goal. The only reason why they were helping the Loki of this world was because his attempt at reaching the goal was one that none of them had ever tried or even thought about. After all, it seemed so pathetic that the other Lokis that respected themselves never even thought about it. Loki broke the silence first. "So you really decided to come here," he said, his voice cool but brittle. "The mongrel they whispered about in the palace halls, the ghost my father denied with a sneer. How disappointing to find you've taken up arms instead of vanishing like a proper disgrace." Hyodine tilted his head, a smirk on his lips wary rather than amused. "Funny," he replied. "I could say the same about you. Still playing the golden puppet, I see. I thought by now you'd have outgrown sucking on the teat of whatever lord fed you flattery. Father may have never called me his son, but his words as the king of my home country have carried a lot of meaning for me. Every praise after a hunt, every word of concern as my bounty continued to increase. He didn't need to call me his son for me to understand that he cared about me." Loki's jaw flexed, the fist at his side shifted faintly as the energy around him spun in circles, his devil fruit power creating an unrest in this area. "I came here not to be a subordinate to some pirate, not even to kill you," he said, eyes narrowing. "I came here to find him, my brother, the one they swore never existed, the one I remember holding my hand in the dark, the one who smiled at me before they took him away so cruelly. I know that Thor still has to be out there somewhere." Iodine's smirk faltered. "There is no other brother, Loki." Liar! Loki snapped, stepping forward, the ground shattering beneath his feet. They told me I imagined him. They said I had dreams shifted by grief. But I remember the warmth, the voice, the way he said my name. And when I saw you, I knew you weren't him. You could never be. The wind rose, tussling both of their hair. The others behind them shifted uneasily, sensing the storm building, not in the sky, but in the blood. Hyrdine's voice dropped low and gravelled. Want the truth? He asked. You want to know what happened to your beloved brother? He stepped forward until only an arm's reach separated the two of them. He was exiled before he could even speak your name again. Passed out with nothing, watched his mother die in the snow, and even if father regretted it, the past couldn't be changed anymore. He clawed his way through mud and fire, hoping that maybe his brother would come find him one day. Don't! Loki said, a tremor in his tone. Don't pretend to be him! You're not him! You can't be him! Thor was mighty. Thor was gigantic even for a giant. Thor could make all the bells in the gate of Elbaf ring while still a child. You are unable to do that even now! That is not wrong. Hyrdine's voice cracked now, and he took off his helmet. They took it from me. The power of our ancestors was taken from me and I could do nothing about it. On the head of the giant warrior were stumps. Stumps where once horns had been. I became a pirate because the world had taught me from a young age that it had no place for me. They told me I was filth, that it was shame to the throne, and a curse for the entire nation. Loki looked away, pain flickering in his gaze for the first time. I was 1. I was 5, Hyrine growled. Old enough to remember your voice calling after me as they dragged me out. Old enough to remember the silence that followed. You simply made up some fictional stories about your great heroic brother. Hyrine stared at all the different Lokis. To think that so many of you were unable to see the truth. So many of you decided to live in an unreasonable, fictional world. Liar! All of the Lokis yelled together. You are scum! A lowlife with inferior blood! Lightning danced far in the distance, echoing the sharpness in their words. The clouds had darkened, and with them, so too had the space between the brothers. Hyrine covered his arms in almond haki, the energy crackling around him, black lightning surrounding his arm, its edges striking the ground and creating even more havoc in the war. I searched the world for my brother. Through secrets, through lies, I gave everything to the warlord who promised me truth, followed him into the war for the sake of a single piece of information. But you are insisting on lying to my face? That you are my brother? Loki raised his fists. Then I'll show you what a true royal from Elbaf can do. Hyrine didn't flinch. His own fists, covered in scars and blackened with high-level haki, were already in position, as the rest of his body also took on a fighting stance. Then let's see how royalty bleeds. I already defeated you in the Winter Solstice tournament not so long ago. And this time, I am not even alone, so it will be even easier. No more words passed between them. No reconciliation. No forgiveness. Just the roar of thunder, the shouts of two brothers, and the scream of their companions as both sides surged forward, drawn like fate into the clash their leaders had begun. And as weapons clashed, as brother met brother beneath the eye of a dying sky, the earth wept for what had been lost long before the war had ever begun. This is the end of today's episode of Shadow Piece. I hope you enjoyed it. Yes, we are now entering, I don't want to call it the Elbaf section, but kinda is. It's Loki vs Hyrine, the giant warrior pirates against all of the different Lokis that got summoned to this universe. Yep, I kind of changed the story. I mean, I had this written way before we got the Loki backstory on actual One Piece. So it's kind of funny to me how it turned out. Because I made Loki not be like the cursed one, I just made Loki to be like a shut-in after being like, after the Charlotte woman didn't want to marry him, which kind of didn't even ever get mentioned again, I think, in like canon One Piece. I wonder if that is ever going to be brought up again. So I made Loki a shut-in, kind of a loser in a way, but the people from Elbaf, they did care about him. But the people from Elbaf in this universe, they didn't really care about Hyrine. They saw him as lesser because his blood was only partially from Elbaf. They saw him as lesser because he was just not the same, and he had the ancient giant blood in him, but not Loki in this universe. So it kind of actually switched up compared to the canon One Piece, which is quite interesting to see how my Shadow Piece turned out to kind of be in the same ballpark as canon One Piece, but like I twisted it around a bit. So, I hope you enjoyed this battle that's going to come up between Loki, Hyradine, and all of the new Giant Warrior Pirates against the other Lokis. But for now, that's all from me for today. All that to be said is stay happy, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay cultured. Pyro, out. Bye!